Hello and welcome to our video tutorial for the assembly of the 3DC SciFi City base pack. So the first thing that I will show you is how you actually can assemble a building. So first go into your poser figure library, go to a 3DC and then 3DC SciFi City. In order to load a building, go to the building subdirectory. Choose any sort of building that you have in there. For example, we will choose building 1. As soon as you double click, it will load into your scene. As you may see, the building is just too large, so you need to actually go to a different distance with your camera. Just bear in mind that those buildings are very large, so when you want to make a full shot, you need to go far away from that building. Now as we rotate around it, you will actually see this building as a whole. One thing that you also need to be careful of, if you are using a camera preset in Poser that has a lower John setting, you will have to actually reduce this, increase this to a higher amount. Elsewise, you will probably see something like this. So the building will be invisible because the yawn actually ends at a specific number. So if you actually higher that to whatever 1,000 or 10,000, you will actually see everything. The building, as you see it in this scene, is divided into specific bones. I do actually use the hierarchy editor to disable those kind of bones. So for example, if you want to disable something like the part 2, you just can simply click on the eye and then you actually disable this part of the building. And in order to make it easier to change your building in style, we have prepared easy poses. If you go to your runtime library and go to the pose section, go through your 3DC subdirectory and then go to the SciFi City. Down here, go to the building poses, go to the building that you have actually loaded up here. Make sure the building is selected, and then you can actually load any specific easy pose which will actually alter the lookalike of that building. We'll just use it in fullscape now. In order to load a SciFi application, for example, go back to your figure section of your runtime library, go to your SciFi apps and load a building app. You'll see it actually will already load to that location, but nevertheless, if you have moved your building somewhere else, the easiest thing, and that's one of the pretty things here, is you can simply conform it to the building. In order to do so, make sure that the SciFi app is selected, go to Figure, Conform to, and then select the building. Now you can actually choose the building itself, and you can move the building around. I usually use poser units because then it's much easier to change it to a higher volume, so you don't have to calculate this down to meters or something like this. The same actually applies to the details. So if you want to load a detail to a specific building, just simply load the detail for that building. As usual, it will just load to that location. And then what you can do as well, it's the same for the SciFi app. You just make sure it's selected, go to Figure, Conform to, and select the building, click OK, and then it's actually conformed. So as soon as you move the building itself, you will move everything with it. Now another thing that we want to show you is how you can actually change a building in style when you have already applied and loaded SciFi apps or details to that building. If you go to the pose section and go to the building poses first, make sure the building itself is selected, and then apply, for example, we'll take the half one for this time here. So just load it, and the building will actually collapse in style. So you will see that the apps and the details actually move in the same way. But something that you shouldn't forget is that even though the part 2 for the building here has become invisible, the part 2 for the SciFi apps and for the detail have not become invisible. So either you disable that manually by just simply deselecting them here, or you can actually also go to the pose section of your runtime library and go to the subfolders for the apps and detail poses, go to building 1 and select half 1 when you have the SciFi apps and the details selected. I strongly recommend to do this because some of those details may elsewise overlay with another detail, and that can actually happen to fraction in renderings, and it just simply doesn't look good. So I also wanted to show you how you can actually assemble a larger scene. In order to do that, I wanted to have one building in the foreground and then two in the background. I've already started and loading a building 02 just in the middle of the scene and moved my main camera to a location just a little bit closer to the building, and I've actually also reduced the focal length to give it a little bit more of a widescape. Additionally, we are now loading a building 01 into the scene, and we are moving this a little bit more to the right, and we are moving it to the back. Because there's no relevance of the ground here, we can simply move the building down as well. Let's just move it a little bit more to the back. And I just have to, sorry that my PC is reacting a little bit weird. That's because the screen capturing program is running in the background. And as a third building, we're going to load the building 04. So again, we are moving this to the right a little bit more, and we're moving this to the back. Wrong direction. Okay. And maybe not as much as that. Sometimes it's easier to type it in. Okay. So this already gives you an idea of how the scene is going to look like. Now, the easiest thing now is to load things or play around with lighting, etc. Just as before you apply any details to the scene. It's just simply faster. So we'll load light to the scene right now. The lights are actually maintained underneath the lights section of your Poser runtime library. Go to 3DC and then 3DC SciFi City. So we want to make this a day scene, so we load the daylight. So depending on where you want to have your sun shining, you can, as you see the light control here, you can simply take the sun main light and move it around so you have it at a somewhere where you want to have the shadows coming from and the light coming from. So we'll take this. Now as a third thing, we want to load a hemisphere. So just go back to your figure section, go to accessor, and just load the hemisphere into your scene. I think I have to move the building 1 a little bit to a farer distance, so I just select my building 1 up here. And I will move it to -70. Okay. Now I have my scene ready how I would like to have it looking like. So I want to apply SciFi apps and details to the building. So what I do now is I go to my SciFi apps underneath my figure section of my runtime library. And first I'm going to load the SciFi apps for building 02. So I just go to building 02 app and load it into the scene. As a second step, I want to load the application for building 01, but I want to make sure that the application I loaded for building 02 stays with building 02. So what I do is I make sure it's selected. I then go to figure, oops, I didn't hit figure, figure conform to, and I select building 02, hit OK. Now the beauty is if I actually want to move my building 02 a little bit to the left, everything attached to that building will move with it. Just because I'm doing so already, I do the same for the detail for that building. So I go to details, and load my detail for that building. So I do the same as what I did for the SciFi app, make sure it's selected, go to figure, conform to, it's just a screen capturing program in the background is eating up all my resources, so I'm sorry for that. So I select my building 02, hit OK, and it's now conformed to that building. Just want to show you what I was saying. So if I So I just select my building 02, and let's say we'll move it like 5 to the left. You'll see it actually everything moves with it. Now I'm going to reverse that because otherwise I have a gap here between the two. Just move it back to 0. So building moves back to the right. Now I'm going to load SciFi apps for the building 1 and building 3 as well. So I go to my SciFi apps and load building 01 app. Now you won't see it because it loads to the zero section of this scene. So what I need to do is make sure it's selected. Go to figure, conform to, and select building 1. Hit OK, and you'll see all the apps now move to the backside. I can do the same for the details, and do the same thing for building 03 now. I will do this now without recording. So all I did was I loaded details for building 01 and details for building 3 and the SciFi apps for building 3 and just conformed them there. So this is it. So you can now simply render that scene. I just want to show you a couple of important settings in your render settings. So when you go to render, render settings, just make sure you have disable smooth polygons. Use displacement maps should be on. If you want to actually give the scene some specific depth, use depth of field, but make sure that your camera has been set correctly in regards to its focal length. What you actually should be doing is make sure when you use indirect light that your indirect light is at a stage of about 90. And that should give you some good results. So we will give it a test and render that scene.